Okay, so these self-reflective videos are actually really fun. I'm so excited for today. So today we're talking about emotional self-neglect. I feel like I always say this in every video. I feel like I've said that now for the past two videos, but I feel like this one is really deep. We're talking about emotional self-neglect and how painful it is to be in that state of mind. And I hope this video just kind of serve as a guide to lead you towards a direction that lets you come out of that rut, that lets you come out of that slump and slowly start to be self-aware again and take responsibility for how you view yourself, your identity, your life, and just kind of like take back control of your life again. We're going to explore this feeling of emotional self-neglect and where that may stem from. So this feeling of emotional self-neglect is being okay. There's an aspect of it that where you're conscious of it, and there's also an aspect of it where you might behave subconsciously. And to me, the subconscious aspect of it stems from your trauma. So for example, you could have been in a state of survival mode for a long time, which leads you to believe that your emotions are not valid, that you need to suppress your emotions, and that your opinions of yourself are odd in a way. And there's also the aspect of not even believing the things that are happening to you. So you might experience like short-term memory loss of the things that are happening around you, or you might be the kind of person that disassociates, which leads you to associate introspection as a form of threat, like it signals as a threat in your mind. And what that means is that you're afraid to look within, you're afraid to look within yourself and to really figure out what is happening with you, how you felt, how you've interacted with others, your emotions and everything that has to do with looking into your inner world, which leads you to subconsciously believing that the emotional side of you is not valid. And that could happen subconsciously because obviously as you have that internal belief, you're going through life with that mentality, and that sinks in as your default state. And so obviously your subconscious mind leads you down the path where you're neglecting yourself emotionally. So everything is all suppressed, it's all deep in there. Just because you're not acknowledging it doesn't mean it's not there. It's pretty much there, and it sometimes comes to haunt you. That could be the subconscious explanation part of things. And on the other side with the conscious, which it could be conscious, is that you might be someone that is actively self-aware. You understand how your emotions work, you understand what triggers you, you understand how the people around, how you respond to certain situations, how some people around you might trigger certain emotions. You're overly self-aware, but instead you make the conscious decision to say, no, I'm not going to introspect further into this because of the obvious pain that it may cause you. So you're just like, okay, I'm aware of all these emotions, I'm aware of how I'm interacting with people, but I just don't want to feel the pain. So you're consciously like neglecting that aspect of yourself. So that's what like emotional neglect looks like on both sides of the spectrum. But the moral, I think the core thing I want to bring in this video and the fact of it all is that emotional neglect genuinely is the cause of your internal turmoil, and it's the cause of the overwhelming feelings that you might be feeling lately, and it's a very painful state to be in. I want you to understand that state, that's also a state that you're in, where you're not validating all your emotions, where you're suppressing your emotional life and you're overly using logic, or to you it seems like logic, because you're thinking, okay, I am making this choice, I am making this decision, and to you it's an illusion of control, in the sense that you're assuming that because you're consciously making this decision to neglect that emotional side of yourself, to neglect your emotional life, you're thinking, okay, I'm making that choice and that decision, so therefore that means I shouldn't experience any form of like sadness. I shouldn't experience any form of depression from being in that state. But I think the reality really kicks in sometimes, where life reminds you that, hey, like if you neglect this aspect of you, which is all an aspect of yourself that you can't run away from, it's still in your thoughts, it's still coming to your mind, it's still something that you're aware of, whether you'd like to admit it or not. And so what that means is the acknowledgement now of this state that you're in, where now you understand which side you're on, and now we want to validate that this state of idea, or this idea that this illusion of control, where you're thinking that you can push that outside, is an illusion, and it's not something you can just brush over. It's an aspect of yourself. Your mind is still going to bring it forward to you. And I feel like it's really important to really emphasize the pain aspect of it, where you could start to experience the after effects of pushing that aside, which could be high functioning depression in a lot of cases, where like everything is okay, you're going through your daily life as normal as usual, but then there's this like emptiness that you feel on the inside, or there's this form of lack of interest, lack of passion, lack of drive that you're feeling on the inside, where you feel like you're going through life on autopilot, which a lot of people can testify to. I had a period in my life where I was going through life on autopilot, and during those times it was most of my academic years, and it was also one of the times, it was also a significant period in my life where I was actually going through terrible things also, like academically, and that significantly affected my mental health as well, my emotional well-being. I pushed that aside, but I didn't know during that time that I had a form of high functioning depression, where like I could go through my daily routine with no problem, right? But like there was still kind of like emptiness or sadness deep inside, and I've just now came to realize that that's actually high functioning depression. But yes, so that aspect of things can be really, really painful, which is why, again, self-awareness is really important. So if you're that kind of person that is like actively choosing to stay away from that and to be less self-aware, I don't know if you can be less self-aware when you're already self-aware, but if you're like making that decision and that choice to push it away via distractions, then obviously you can also fall into the trap or experience some form of like depression or pain. But the painful aspect of this is that being in that state where you're pushing aside your emotions can be deeply painful. It can be an emotional state to be in, and you understand what I mean. You understand how that feels like, to actively neglect your emotions and whatever has been going on for like, and like all the events that are happening in your life day by day, week by week, as the months pass by, you're accumulating all those emotional turmoil that you're choosing not to deal with, that you're choosing not to dissect, that you're choosing not to go over and go through. And it's so interesting with the rise of AI and ChatGPT now, where people are using AI as a form of therapy. I hold no judgment whatsoever. I use AI as well. For very minimal things. But I do understand the aspect of things. I don't even know why I brought that up, but I just thought it was kind of significant. But hey, even YouTube, I see YouTube, Google, everything as informational. That's where we derive our information from these days. It's completely understandable. So yeah, that's another aspect. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Okay, so I really wanted to acknowledge how overwhelming, stressful, painful it can be to being in a state where you've completely suppressed all your emotions is nothing like you're, especially, I feel like I can describe it as being numb, and leading to a state of apathy. If you've ever felt apathy before, not self-induced, not induced by any form of medication like ashwagandha. A lot of people take ashwagandha to feel numb. That's something I would do, but this is just like natural, a natural situation where you've suppressed your emotions so much that you've just built the skill of being numb to it all. That state can make you feel like it's a very weird state to be in, because you're going through pain on the inside, but you're also like, you also feel like you're on autopilot, or you also feel like you're unstable. You also feel like robotic in a way. It's a very weird sensation, very weird thing to go through. And I completely understand that. I want us to acknowledge that right now. Like, that is a very valid thing. That is something that happens, and it's like such a devastating thing to go on. But I want us to acknowledge that right now. And I want to bring this to our awareness that we need to snap out of it. We need to tap out of it. We need to snap out of it, because it is so much more freeing to go through life aware of your emotional life. It's so much more freeing to tackle those painful events and those triggers that you might come across, those emotional triggers that you might come across, and deal with them hands on. It is so much better to go back home and reflect over your day, and analyze certain situations and interactions that you've had with people, and say, okay, that aspect of the conversation triggered me here, and why that triggered me. Okay, it's a result of my past. It's something that someone has said before, or it triggered my feeling of fear of abandonment, or like some form of anxiety or something like that, and then dealing with that hands on. And I think one example I can give is, for example, let's say you go through an interaction where, let's say these people were your friends, or let's say you don't know them very much, or they're just your acquaintances, people that you talk to on and off. Okay, so let's say they suggested a plan, and you found out that you were not involved in that plan. Okay, that means that triggered a feeling of abandonment, like a fear of abandonment. Okay, now I feel abandoned, I feel not chosen, I feel not loved. Okay, now you can go back home, analyze, reflect on your emotions, and be like, okay, what exactly triggered this? How can I sort of like detach from their opinions of me, and how can I feel loved again by the right people? You see what I'm saying? Like, finding active solutions, logical solutions to those emotional pain or emotional turmoil that you may feel. That is my suggestion. That is kind of the process that I go through during, like, that is kind of like my own self-reflection time, and my own like introspection time at the end of the day, where I just like pick up all these different events that happen throughout my day, and analyze those things individually, and say, okay, part of my day triggered me emotionally. Like, what part of my day kind of like sparked something up that I need to heal, or whatever trauma that I need to heal based on this interaction that I had. And that is how I always keep in track of how I'm feeling, my mental health, and that is how I actually keep my mental health in check. And then if there's certain things that I need advice on, I would ask my parents, I would ask my friends, people around me, or type it out on Google and YouTube. Like, YouTube is a great, I mean, we're here right now on YouTube. It's an awesome platform for knowledge, for information, and to kind of like sort out different emotions. So this is why, and the reason why I'm emphasizing this is because it's really important to have a stable emotional life where you're taking control of how you're feeling. And this is how you build resilience, emotional resilience. So that's very important. And also how you're able to detach from people's opinions of you, and fear of judgment, and all those kind of things like that. So that is personally what I recommend. It's a great place to start. A great place to start is to understand that it's good to be self-aware. Being self-aware is not a terrible thing. It's actually a great thing. It's a great place to start. If you're already naturally self-aware, it's a great place to start as well. Speaking for me, the way I view it is kind of like being self-aware of how I'm feeling and taking note of individual events that happen throughout the day, individual like interactions that I have with people that trigger something in me, and then I'll go back and like reflect on that and then walk through that kind of process and sort of like healing myself out of that pain that might come through from that. So that is essentially what I do. This is really, I know this might sound very strange, this might be new, this might come across as new information, but that's personally how I like to see it. And I believe that is kind of like the solution or the starting point over this phase of this state, and moving more into thriving, a state of thriving emotionally, because I think that's very, very important. You don't want things to kind of like build up and accumulate. That is pretty much all I have to say for this video. There's gonna be more more self-reflection videos that I'm going to be doing, which is going to be really interesting. I'm so excited for that. But yeah, that would be all for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.